Welcome to this week's episode with me, Daisy Adams. Here at the Cricket Coaching Code podcast, we've recently teamed up with Cricket.jobs, a team who are not only highly motivated to find you the ideal job within cricket, but they will also ensure the right people apply for your environment. We've partnered up with them because I've always wondered what is out there in the worldwide market, and I couldn't find a one-stop shop that brings them all together. Now I have. Head over to cricket.jobs to see the latest opportunities. So let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Cricket Coaching Code podcast. As you can see on your screens, I am joined by Grant Flower. Grant, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. Yes, yeah, all good. Thanks. Good to be here.
Excellent. Great to see you, and thank you very much for coming on and recording something with us. I think we were just chatting there about a few mutual friends we had, and really looking forward to a bit of a chat, talking about coaching, talking about cricket, where you are, and what's sort of going on in your world. That'll be perfect over the next sort of 20 minutes. So if you don't mind me, then Grant, can I open up with the first question? How did you get into cricket coaching?
Well, probably through the passion of my dad.
Okay.
He loved cricket. He played a bit himself, but he was big into his coaching. And then that's how we got employed by Zimbabwe Cricket back in the day. Actually, before we became professional cricketers, we were employed as coaches. So we started our journey there back in the day in Zimbabwe. And then we went into play professionally for Zimbabwe and Essex, and now we coaches. So yeah, myself and my brother are really enjoying it. Thanks.
Yeah, great. So do you think that sort of helped you as a player, having that understanding from a sort of coach's perspective, in order for you to sort of execute your skill and perform in the game as a player, having that coaching background?
I think so. Probably a bit of empathy for coaching and coaches and just how they go about it. And sort of inquisitive part. And also just, instead of just telling you're trying to get the best out of the player, you're trying to get him to share his thoughts, as opposed to probably the olden days style of coaching was just tell and do it my way or whatever the coach thought at the time. So I think it could only have helped.
Yeah, great. Have there been coaches along your journey who you've had as a mentor or looked up to or learnt lots from, or has it sort of been quite picky in terms of how you've gone around, experienced, brought together your own style and approach?
Well, back in the day, Dave Houghton was a very good coach, very knowledgeable, tactically and technically. And probably I learned a lot of my brother. He's obviously he's got some good stats behind his name and done very well in the coaching field. And there are lots of others, and you just pick up little pointers along the line and try and ask and listen. I'm very fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. Yeah,
great. So what are you doing at the moment then? You say what you're doing. What's on the cards for you? Where are you? What are you executing as a coach at the moment?
I'm currently with Sussex. I'm the batting coach. I've had 3 seasons with them, and we've just been promoted into the first division, so that's quite exciting. The guys played really well last year, and the batters had a really good season, so I'm happy with that. And in the winter, I do a couple of franchise things. I've just come back from Abu Dhabi, where I did the T10 with my brother's team, and got the IL20 in Dubai. That's in January. So yeah, keeping busy, and then some pre-season stuff with the Sussex boys before we head into a really important season in the first division.
Yeah, that's all the very best for that. I'm going to pick up on what you said there, and your success with Sussex from a coach's perspective. And you mentioned a little bit there that the batters had a really good season. What do you think was the key to that success from your sort of with your coach's look on it?
Good preparation in the winter.
Okay.
The guys worked really hard, and attention to detail, and probably just a bit more structure in the way they went about it in their prep. And then just small details, not getting out as much in the nets and just being a bit harder with the guys. And them themselves dealing with pressure in the middle a bit better than the other seasons, and probably just dealing with pressure over sustained periods of time against good bowling attacks, and just making better decisions. So a lot of mental, obviously the technical side, but just combining those few things and just trying to get the guys dealing with pressure a bit better.
Okay, so what advice can you offer to other coaches who might be experiencing similar? Clearly, we net and practice indoor in this country throughout the off season. How can you inject pressure and having to deal with pressure in a sort of in those net sessions that people will be going through?
Attention to detail, not letting things drift, guys. Skimming balls in the nets with getting caught cover or mid-wicket as opposed to hitting it right over, or playing it a bit later, hitting it on the ground. Not making excuses, being honest with the players, but getting good, honest feedback from themselves. And a bit like I said, not just telling, but gaining that trust with the player. And it doesn't have to be long periods of practice, but it's got to be intense and meaningful, and not just ticking boxes. I think sometimes counties can go back into pre-season too early. We're only starting our skills in January, whereas it's fitness up till Christmas, etc. And whereas some guys go away and play club cricket and that, but not doing things just for the sake of it, which I think can happen quite a bit in pre-season.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Obviously, you've got some people who will be away in other countries playing. How as a batting coach then are you keeping an eye on those individuals? How are you ensuring that they're going in the right direction with the games that they're getting in order to come back to Sussex and be successful for next year? How does that work for you?
Well, the good thing about social media and WhatsApp, etc., you can definitely follow the scores. And if a guy's having a problem with it, some part of his game, you can easily send you a video, because most things get recorded these days, or you just chat about it and have a call. It's very easy these days. But also you want to give the guys a bit of freedom. Sometimes it's good to hear a different voice. So if they've got a coach out there or wherever they are, and they've got some good new ideas or something, or experimenting with something, sometimes it's good just to let guys go a bit. You don't want to be too robotic in the way you coach or suffocating guys.
Yeah, sure. Let's link what you're experiencing now at Sussex. Then, if you go back to thinking about how you played the setup at Essex, and we'll go on to our mutual friend Don Topley in a little bit. But how does that differ from your time as a player at Essex and how you see Sussex now? Do you think you learnt, or do you think you've implemented things from that experience, or is that sort of what you're bringing into and the approach you're taking at Sussex now come from other areas and avenues and opportunities that you've seen and faced?
Yeah, well, I played under Paul Grayson at Essex, and Graham Gooch.
Yep.
And Ronnie Arani was captain as well. Very strong leader. But Gucci always had a huge work ethic. Mm-hmm. And that's something I've always thrived upon. And when I was a player, I trained a lot, probably a bit too much, probably overtrained at times. But so you learn little lessons there. But Gucci was one never to leave any stone unturned. And, you trained the house down, both in the nets and in the gym. And so I've taken quite a bit of that into my coaching. And it's also the way my brother and I trained together, and we grew up doing the same sort of things. So it's some of those things to Sussex. The guys do have a high work ethic there. I enjoy hitting balls, but so it's finding a balance. But I think it's being honest with the players, like I touched upon earlier, and just gaining trust. I think if a player trusts you, you can develop a much better partnership, and the learning curve, it happens a lot quicker. If you don't have that trust, the guys aren't going to open up to you, and they're not going to learn, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have that trust, and in all walks of life, the trust has to be there for things to progress or things to happen, and interactions and transactions between people in that relationship. How do you go about building and developing trust with players as a coach then?
Leading by example.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's quite a big one. You don't want to be saying one thing and then doing completely the opposite, whether that's in lifestyle or in the way you behave at nets or your decorum within the group. What else? I think doing your homework, your due diligence, being ready, and having structure there, so that the guys have got a routine, that they know what to expect, and making it fun. You don't want to be too serious. There's got to be an element of fun there. Otherwise, it just becomes work, and the players will drift off. If you've got a stressed look on your face all the time, they're going to feel that, and you want them to be relaxed. And the best players in the world, they go out ready, but they're relaxed at the same time. Otherwise, the stress just becomes too much, and becomes a hindrance in the end, and you'll burn out.
Which I suppose in a performance or a sports performance organisation can be quite hard to deal with at times. If you don't mind me asking this question, how do you as a coach deal with stress? How do you go about that? Have you learned something about yourself that you find works for you, or is there still other avenues of support in your support network that enable you to not carry that stress? Considering last year must have been quite a stressful year getting Sussex through to the position that they're in.
Yeah, definitely, it was stressful. A lot of the time.
Yeah,
but it used to be exercise.
Okay.
I've always found a great ally in going out for a run or to the gym or whatever, like a cycle. But also just slowing things down, I think. Life can be really hectic these days and very rushed. And I think if you just break things down a bit, you breathe, you slow things down, you do just basic jobs a bit slower, and I think that can take the burden off you a bit. And I just try and keep things in perspective. When you're coaching a county or whatever team, you're really lucky to be doing something you enjoy, and you get paid well for it. So just keeping that perspective when other people out there are struggling a lot, and so just being knowing how fortunate you are to be doing what you do.
Yeah, that's I can imagine there are times when sort of heavily involved and it is a busy season for you, and going along the journey of your season, it can really get on top of you, living, breathing, doing everything that you're doing in order to get those results. But I think that perspective element. How do you have anybody that you rely upon as a support network to put that perspective into your life?
My brother a lot. We have quite a few deep and meaningful conversations, and we always have. We always helped each other a lot with our own games. We knew each other's batting inside out or cricket inside out, so that was a good thing to have. And then, I think, as coaches, like in the county setup, you meet up most evenings when you're on the road, and you have a beer or a meal and you chat about stuff casually, and then things invariably come out and you have a good discussion about it. Sometimes it can get a bit heated, but sometimes that's a good thing. As long as you're getting things out in the open, But you keep balanced with that because everyone's got their views, so you got to respect their views. But sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But as long as you're sharing them and being honest about it and humble with it.
You've mentioned obviously your brother Andy, a successful coach. Is there still competition between yourself and your brother in this sort of coaching environment? Did that exist as you were growing up as players, and was it healthy for you to have that natural brotherly competitiveness?
Yeah, it's always just been brotherly, healthy competition. But in the coaching world, yeah, he's way up there. He's doing the IPL, and he's been head coach for a long time, starting with the England job. I've always been one of the assistants and batting coaches, so his profile's a lot higher than mine. But yeah, just healthy rivalry, and we get on well, but we also learn a lot of each other. So it's been good and enjoyable.
Yeah, great. Let's go to the individual that our mutual friend then, Don Topley. Before we hit record and before we started talking, you were saying obviously that you had those connections when you were when he was the coach at in Zimbabwe, and obviously when you were at Essex when Reece was there. I think you were Reece's second 11 captain when he was going through. So yeah, what can you remember the first time you ever met Toppers then, and can you sort of allude on to anything that you can share with us about the man?
Well, he's a larger-than-life character and a really good bloke. And I don't think he had much coaching experience, so I think he might have been surprised when he got the Zim job himself. But from what I can remember, he did a good job. But part of the culture in Zimbabwe, it's quite a piss-pulling culture. So, and quite a few of the guys that played, they weren't professional cricketers. Some of them had jobs, and prior to us going out to the Australian World Cup, the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, I can't remember which year it was, but I ended up not going. I broke my arm just before that in a tournament in South Africa, so I missed it. But prior to that trip to South Africa, we were in a training camp, and Toppers was giving us a lecture in the change room about how much it means playing for your country. And one of the things he was saying, I'd give my right arm to be doing this. And then he carried on a bit, I'd give my left leg to be playing for Zimbabwe, and these are the sacrifices. And then there was a guy called Craig Evans, and he said, "Sorry, Toppers, can I ask you one thing?" And he said, "Yeah, what is it, Craig?" And he said, "Well, mate, you're going to be struggling to do much without any arms and legs." And he hated to be interrupted. But that was just the culture we had. Guys, they didn't take it too seriously. But there were a lot of very good natural cricketers. But they also had a very good sense of humour. But Toppers, he did well, considering what he had as his resources, because cricket wasn't totally professional there. So the team were very competitive.
Yeah. Funny. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Noticing we've probably got a few more minutes to talk to each other. I'm gonna go down a little bit of a sort of technical route with your sort of batting coaching. Have you? What do you look for? What does a talented batter look like, or look? What does it present? What are you picking up when you're looking at a batter and you think that's a talented individual? Where do you go as a coach?
The way he picks length.
Okay.
I think when I first threw at Babar Azam in Pakistan, when I worked there for 5 years, but when I first came across Babar, was the way he picked length so quickly. It was much better than all the other batters I threw to, and his feet movement was so precise. Also, just the judgments they make, and whether they give their wicket away needlessly or if they put a high price on it. But just the way they go about their batting, how late they're playing the ball right under their eyes, or if they're hitting it really early. I think you can see really, really good signs of batters from a couple of those traits, and just the general judgments and the way they go about their business. and how they relate to myself as a coach and to other players. You can pick up little things and you think to yourself, this guy's going to go far, or this guy's a bit flippant. He looks quite full of it, and he might make it, but he might not as well. So just little pointers like that.
Are you able to get to share any examples of any players that you saw very early on in their career and thought, yeah, these are ticking those those check boxes that you mentioned there that you've worked with, if you're able to share any examples of any sessions or any innings that have you've really gone, yep, this is coming together for that individual.
Well, there's one that everyone knows so well and knows so much about them now is Harry Brook. I happened to do 10 days of coaching with Yorkshire at the end of one of my trips. Martin Moxon invited me there for a brief camp, and I saw him in the nets, and I phoned up my brother the next day and I said, this is one that you guys should be looking at. And he hadn't made it then, but people were talking about him in a quiet manner. And I said, I've seen this guy hit the ball and it's different to the rest. And, sometimes it's just one shot and you think, no, this guy is a bit different to the rest. And then, I gave that example of Barbara Azam. There was Ravi Bafara when I first went to Essex, and I saw this young guy. And my brother, I asked my brother about him because he went to Essex slightly before me. And he said, yeah, he's definitely one for the future. And he had earmarked it himself. So, it's exciting when you see new young players on the scene, especially these days. They got so much to play for. There's so many tournaments. The money's huge, so much more than when we played. But so good luck to them. They got it all at their disposal.
Yeah, great. There's a real future in cricket. It's great to see that it's that it is growing and offering those opportunities for players to be given those chances to financially reward and experience different things around the world, to see things in a different way. As a coach, then, sort of, do you see there being a threat to cricket coaching or playing with that kind of the white ball being so strong? Do you see that being negative towards sort of county championship from a playing perspective?
There's definitely more player power now, I think.
Okay.
And it depends, how coaches coach. There seems to be more of a thing about letting players have their own way.
Okay.
And give more freedom, and especially the way it looks with the England setup, and it looks to be working to a certain degree. Guys giving a lot more freedom, but I think it's important to know when you do need to interject, which I've seen with a few of our guys, and some of them I'm not sure. Like when they come back from an England setup, and then you say something, and then they might say, well, this isn't what I've just been told, and we usually just allowed to do our own thing. And I said, okay, that's fine, but I'm just saying this is just my personal opinion. But it's just the way they go. So, I mean, we can learn off them, and then they can learn a few things off us at the same time. But I think it's just keeping an open perspective, because the game's definitely changed.
Yeah.
And the guys hit it a lot harder than we did in our days, a lot further. But things have just gone on so quickly. So you've got to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you'll get left behind.
Do you think there are, when it comes to batting coaching, do you think the fundamentals will still remain and stay in the red ball and white ball game? Or do you think the white ball game is going to go so far in a direction that we're almost having to learn a different set of skills to be able to be a really effective white ball batter? Or do you think the red ball game is going to slightly change and follow white ball cricket?
I'm not sure. I think whatever you do in life, you need a good base, and something to fall back on. Like, you need a good stock ball. If you're a leg spinner, you got to turn your leggy, and because when things aren't going well for you, you got to come back to that. because that's what got you to where you are generally. So you need a good base. Like when you're batting, you need good balance. All the best players in the world, they're balanced when they hit the ball, whatever their trigger is or something. But when they hit the ball, they're balanced. But like I said, things are changing all the time. White ball, yeah, it's come on so much. Like my brother told me that I need to, biomechanically, I need to work on my coaching a bit, a few bits. And he gave me like Neil McKenzie. He's worked quite a bit with Neil McKenzie. And Neil McKenzie's quite big into his biomechanics and, getting your hip into the ball. And he said you could do well to be learn a few things off him. So I'm learning all the time, and there's still a lot of good things to do and become better at, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, who knows which way the game's going to go, because it's evolving so quickly, especially with all the tournaments. But it's enjoyable, and enjoying the ride so far.
Yeah, great. Grant, thank you very much for coming on and chatting and sharing us some of those ideas. Very much appreciate it. And if we can arrange it with Mark to sort of have a three-way conversation in the future, that'd be really great.
All right, Keith. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Grant. Appreciate it. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then please like, follow and share this podcast with others. And don't forget, if you would like to feature as a coach or you would like us to cover something, then please email us at thecricketcoachingcode@gmail.com. That's it for this week. Until next time, go well.